Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. Hope you're all good. Today I'm here with my new video, and today video is again related to English literature, and it is about a modern play, The Caretaker. It is related to the theatre of the absurd, and this is written by Harold Pinter, one of the greatest names in the writers, in the dramatists of the theatre of the absurd. This play is written in 1960, and it was a very unconventional kind of play. It was not like traditional tragedies or comedies, because the style, the diction, language, the characters, themes of the play of the theatre of the absurd, they are absolutely different from the traditional plays like tragedies, comedies, tragicomedies, comedy of humors, artificial comedies, or melodrama, etc. So they're very different. So they are written almost in the mid of the 20th century, and the impact of the Second World War on the world, on different cultures, on the man. The impact of the Second World War on the human race, on the cultures, on man himself was so drastic, was so forceful that it gave way to such new genre, a new form of drama in literature. This play is based on the theme of isolation, which is one of the modern themes of literature, like other themes. For example, disillusionment, disappointment, spiritual degradation, and many others. So, isolation is one of the most important themes of this drama. So, in this drama, there are only three characters: Davies, Austin, and Mick. Davies is a stranger, a poor tramp, and Mick and Austin, they are real brothers. Mick is a builder by profession, and Austin, he lives with his brother in a small house, and just one room in which they live. And this is basically an attic room, a storeroom where they live together. Anyhow, it happens that once Davies was fighting with somebody in a cafe. Austin saved him from that fight, and he brought him to his home, and he gave him shelter so that he could live in his house with him. So he was a very kind-hearted character. Austin was very kind-hearted. He gave him shelter and some other important and necessary things to live. So they start living together. Anyhow, the play is full of many absurdities because related to the theatre of the absurd. So absurdities are a very important element in this drama. There are many absurdities in the play. For example, they live together, but they are so much isolated that they live together, but they cannot communicate properly. There is miscommunication in many cases. They are humans. They belong to same culture and nation, but still there is misunderstanding on many issues. Okay, then another absurdity is that modern man is in search of his identity. Davies does not know who he really is. Okay, he does not know his real identity. So he needs papers. He needs cards for his identity. So always he wants to go to Sitka, a place where he is sure his papers are. That could prove his identity. So up to this time he is an unidentified personality. Another absurdity of the modern age, that modern man depends on papers and cards to prove his identity. This is very ironic kind of theme. Then some other absurdities are that their coordination with one another is very weak. Okay, Meg is most of the time suspicious about Davis. He does not like his brother to bring such a stranger to their house. Anyhow, when we go to some other absurdities, Davies constant constant insistence that I will go to Sidcup, I will go to Sidcup. Again and again he repeats, but he never goes. Shows another absurdity that this man every day decides to go somewhere, okay, to prove his identity. Then he will go out and he will find a good job, but never he leaves, but never he goes. So again and again, all his talks, they were just idle, okay, and all his actions, they were absurd. So theatre of the absurd, I told you, it was developed in 1950, and it was a strong reaction to the World War II to show indirectly how much brutal humans can be. Now, this important point is related to the character of Davies especially. Davies was brought to the home, he was a stranger, he was given shelter, he was given food, dress, and every important thing. He was given respect rather. But instead, he is a man of destructive nature. He tries to make confusion and tension between two brothers. He is not happy that they should live happy. Okay, then always he tries to deceive them. So when Austin talks about his electric shocks, that once he was the victim of hallucinations, he was given electric shocks by the doctor on the approval of his mother. So instead of showing some sympathy to this character, to Austin, Davies was so ungrateful that he started laughing. He was making fun of Austin. So this shows how much selfish he is. So this is another absurdity that the modern man is ungrateful even to a person who is kind to him, who is merciful to him. So next absurdity. Many of the actions of the characters, they are futile. There is futility of action. What do you mean by futility? I explain. Any action which has no proper end, consequence or conclusion. When you are working a lot, you are doing hard work, but at the end there is no output. You get nothing. There is nothing important that you achieve. So most of their actions, they are futile. So such is the modern man, that who is doing purposeless things. Okay, and if we go to the reference of the Second World War, that and First World War as well, that man is fighting uh, this great war, and when the war is over, there is no victory, there is no defeat at all, and there is large scale massacre, there is large scale bloodshed. Man got nothing. Instead, the powerful nations, they became more poor, and man lost his belief, man lost his faith, and there were many other disillusionment was in fact the product of these world wars. So very crucial situation became for the man. So the way Davies will never go to Sitka, and he will never have his papers. So he will be unidentified personality throughout the play. In the very way, Austen will never recover from the traumatized situation. And what is that situation? In which he was when he was given the electric shocks. He will always be in that trauma. Okay, and his mental condition, it was damaged due to that, and it is damaged even now. So he will never recover. On the other hand, Mick every day wants to complete his project of building, but nowhere we know that his project is complete. He tries to, he goes to, he insists to complete it, but no. So most of the actions of the characters of this play, they are futile. So this is another absurdity, that man is doing a lot, he is giving time, he is spending money, but as a result, he is getting nothing. Okay, when we come to the character analysis, there are some very important points related to this as well. We have three major characters: Austen, Mick, and Davis. Davies is the most important character because the title the caretaker is after his name. He is declared as the caretaker by the brothers, caretaker of the home, when actually he does not deserve the very title, he does not deserve the very post, and he's a stranger as well. So another absurdity, okay, that we are giving important responsibilities to the people who do not deserve. Now, Davis is basically a tramp, a very poor fellow, a miserable creature who lives on charities. He has nothing, he has no money, he has no property, he has no job. So he's just a wanderer, a miserable creature, a wretched creature who is passing his time here and there in search of food, in search of job, but always he is undone. This man, Davies, is an arrogant personality. He's proud of something that nobody knows. He has nothing, still he is arrogant. So there is ego in him that makes his character not lovable for the audience. Rather, they have a negative attitude about him. His identity is questionable. I told you earlier that who he is, from where he is, his origin, nobody knows, and still he has no papers. So he is just a stranger for all, for audience as well. Okay, this man uh, always he blames others, that the black people are responsible for my failures. Some people who have migrated from other countries to our land, they are responsible for my failure, and he always hates those people who are not from his culture. So he thinks that they are responsible for all of his misfortunes. But it has no solid ground, it has no solid reason. Okay, this man always delays his actions. Tomorrow I will go to the garden. Tomorrow I will set the room and convert it into a tidy form. Okay, tomorrow I will go to sit cup. I will do something. Or next day I will go for the job and I will search a job and I live an honorable life. But all these are plans in words. He actually goes nowhere. His plan is not practical. So all his efforts, they are very futile, and ultimately he was forced out to leave the house by Austin. Why? Because he was trying to make more confusions and tensions between brothers. So this was disliked by the two brothers. So he was ultimately forced out from the house. So the person who was declared as the caretaker is no more the part of that house. He is now kicked out. When we come to the character of Austin, Austin and Mick, I told you, both are brothers. Austin is elder and Mick is younger. Austin is 30 and Mick is almost 20 years old. Austin is a man of shy, reserved nature, and he is slow in his habits, he is slow in his activities. Okay, and the reason could be that he was once given the electric shocks. He was having some mental disorder. So this disorder was and even now is the part of his personality. That always he is reserved, he talks too less, okay, he is shy, and there are some mental suffering that are still irritating him. So he cannot order and organize his thoughts. His thinking is always dispersed. Okay, it is in the disintegrated form. So another very important absurdity related to these two brothers, that they are real brothers. They live together. They love one another, no doubt. They care about one another, but they don't talk. This is related to the theme of communication of this play. They do not talk to one another. They just have a look. They have some expressions, but it's very strange that they don't talk with one another. They are engaged in themselves only. Anyhow, ultimately, this man, he is fed up with the attitude and behavior of this man Davis. Earlier, he was so kind-hearted that he gave him the shelter. He brought him to the home, but now he is just fed up. So he decides to order this person to leave their house. So his very generosity, because of the attitude and hypocritical actions of Davies, was converted into this cruel attitude. So he was not responsible. Actually, the responsibility goes to Davies and his actions himself. Okay, when we come to Mick, who's a young man of 20 years almost, he's a man of he's a man of mysterious nature. He thinks too much, and there are reflections. Okay, but this man, he is uh, at home most of the time. He passes most of his time at home. There's complexity about his characters. He cares his brother too much because Austin was elder and he was a patient of some mental disorder as well. So he tries to care his elder brother. He's by profession a builder, I told you, and he's very intelligent, and he's ambitious to do something great in his life. He's ambitious to do something great and to work for the way he could get a great name in the world. So he's always against Davis. Why? Because Davis is a stranger, and it's natural that he does not like him. He's always skeptical of him. He's suspicious about who this man is, from where he is. So most of the time he does not respect him. So he is disturbed throughout the time he has been in the house. So that is the reason he is very aggressive towards Davis. So like other characters, Mick can also he cannot communicate in a good way. Okay, there are miscommunications. There's lack of communication. So he talks too less. He talks to Davies, but he does not talk to his brother. Another absurdity, yes, as well. But there is something very strange about his character. So he never communicates clearly. So he offers the caretaker job to Davies so that he could not only be the caretaker of the house but also of his brother who is mentally ill. Why? There are two reasons. Number one, to look after his house and his brother, and number two, he could go out and work for his building projects. This was the reason. But ultimately, he also knew what really this man was, and he changed his mind. When we come to the important themes of this drama, there are four very important themes: isolation, communication, realism, and also identity. When we come to isolation, I told you, isolation is so important that all the characters, they are isolated. They live together, but they are isolated, and they could not develop any relation. In this drama, there is not any development. Only three characters, they live together, but still there is no development of relation. That is very, very sad. Now, what does this mean? That they live together, but they live in their own worlds. They have their own worlds. They live in isolation, and they're not engaged with society even. At home, they're isolated. Outside the home, they're isolated. So this is very, very tragic. And this is one of the problems of the modern man. When we come to the problem of identity, modern man needs his identity, either in the form of papers or some cards or whatever the document is. He needs paper. So it means who is in the search of identity? A person who is in search of identity is that person who has lost his identity somewhere. So he needs something to support who he is, his name, his origin, his family, his parents, his culture, his country, his nation. So modern man has this problem. He needs, so this problem is mostly related with Davies. Davies has no proof to show his identity. So this is the problem of the modern man. So when man's faith was weak and he loses his faith, he became the victim of disillusionment and isolation, then gradually he lost his identity. When we come to another theme of communication, that's very important. Communication is very important factor in society. We live because of communication. We work because of communication. The whole life, the whole businesses of life, they operate because of communication. Now, what does this mean? There's a family and people are not talking to one another. And even if they talk, there is miscommunication. They cannot understand one another. There are confusing words, there are confusing ideas. So always uh, there's a lack of communication. There's a communication gap. So this is one of the themes of this drama. That this is the problem of the modern man, and these three characters as well. They live together. They do not communicate. That is why when they do not communicate, there are more confusions. There are more complexities. There are more problems which they face by and by. Then we have a very important point, and that is that people are living together, but they are strange to one another. That is very important. Living together, but they are strange to one another. This is also the problem in this play. They live together even if they are strangers. Okay, even if we single out Davies as a stranger, what about the two real brothers? They are real brothers. They share the same blood. They live together. They love one another. Still, they do not communicate. There's a communication gap. They do not communicate with one another. But what is important here? That they are strangers to one another. The reason is this very lack of communication. And the problems, they go on, they increase. Remember, when there will be no communication, even very good friend will not be very good friend. Okay, after this long discussion, hopefully you will understand all these things. I conclude my today's video on two, three very important notes. This is a play that belongs to the theatre of the absurd. This is purely a modern play about the modern man, with the modern themes like theme of isolation, the theme of disintegration, the theme of lack of communication, and the theme of loss of identity. So that's all for today's lecture. Hopefully you must have understood everything. We will meet soon in the next video. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.